Every summer, a familiar, grueling, and increasingly dangerous ritual plays out across the historic capitals of Western Europe. The winter clouds finally part, the skies clear, the international tourist season reaches its absolute peak, and the temperature steadily ticks upward. But unlike in Houston, Tokyo, Dubai, or Singapore, where a lethally hot day simply means clicking a button on a remote control and enjoying filtered, dehumanized 22-degree air in London, Paris, and Frankfurt, a summer heatwave is treated like a natural disaster. Public transportation grids inevitably collapse. Trains are abruptly cancelled because the steel tracks are literally buckling under the sun. Schools close early, sending children back to sweltering apartments. White-collar office workers sit in front of cheap plastic fans that merely push around a 38 degrees Celsius atmospheric soup, pretending to be productive. And in residential flats across the entire continent, millions of people simply suffer. In the summer of 2003, a heat wave settled over Western Europe and refused to leave. By the time it ended, an estimated 70,000 people were dead, most of them elderly, most of them in countries with some of the best healthcare systems on Earth. France alone lost nearly 15,000 people in a single month. And here's the part that should genuinely confuse you. The technology to prevent almost all of those deaths had existed, cheaply and reliably, for over a century. It was sitting in nearly every American home, every American office. It just wasn't in Paris. More than 20 years later, in a continent that now regularly hits 40 degrees Celsius summers, air conditioning still isn't standard in most Western European homes. Only a small fraction of households have it compared to nearly 9 in 10 in the United States. This isn't an accident, and it isn't simply about cost. It's the result of a deliberate, decades-long resistance built on architecture, energy politics, cultural identity, and a kind of moral suspicion of comfort itself. Air conditioning isn't new. Willis Carrier built the first modern AC unit in 1902 in Brooklyn to control humidity in a printing plant. By the 1950s, it was transforming American life, making the Sun Belt habitable, reshaping architecture, changing how Americans worked, slept, and built cities. The technology crossed the Atlantic just fine. European engineers understood it. European manufacturers could build it. The barrier was never technical. What's striking is that Southern and Eastern Europe adopted air conditioning far more readily than the North. Spain now has AC in the majority of its homes. That alone tells you this isn't simply a story about Europeans don't like AC. It's specifically a Northern and Western European phenomenon. Germany, France, the UK, the Netherlands, Belgium, places that, until recently, genuinely didn't think they needed it. That assumption is the heart of the story, and it's the assumption that's now killing people. Western European cities were built quite literally brick by brick for a temperate climate that rarely exceeded 25 to 28 degrees Celsius even in peak summer. Stone and masonry buildings in Paris, London, and Berlin were designed with thermal mass that absorbed daytime heat and released it slowly, combined with high ceilings, shutters, and cross ventilation that worked extremely well for the climate of 1900 or 1950, or even 1990. Cities that were never designed to shed heat are now traps for it. Narrow streets, dark asphalt, and dense stone construction create urban heat islands that can run 5 to 10 degrees Celsius hotter than the surrounding countryside. And here's the trap. Retrofitting these buildings for air conditioning is genuinely difficult. Many historic European apartment buildings are protected by strict heritage laws that prohibit external units, visible ductwork, or facade modifications. To understand the modern hostility to AC, you have to go back to the 1970s oil shocks. The 1973 and 1979 energy crises hit Western Europe, far more dependent on imported oil than the US, devastatingly hard. Governments responded with aggressive energy conservation campaigns that became deeply embedded in national policy and public consciousness. France, in particular, pivoted hard into nuclear power specifically to escape oil dependency. But the broader cultural lesson taught across the continent was that energy consumption was something to be minimized, not maximized. Air conditioning, in this framing, isn't a comfort technology. It's a symbol of energy excess, dependency, and waste. In a continent that has been burned twice by energy dependency on hostile or unstable foreign suppliers, AC carries a political weight it simply doesn't carry in the US. This is compounded by something structural. European electricity is significantly more expensive than American electricity, partly due to taxation policy designed explicitly to discourage consumption and fund the renewable transition. European environmental policy has explicitly targeted air conditioning expansion as a climate risk, since widespread AC adoption would significantly increase electricity demand precisely as the continent tries to decarbonize its grid. There is a real and uncomfortable irony here. The technology that would save thousands of lives during heat waves is also the technology that, if adopted at an American scale, would meaningfully complicate Europe's climate commitments. European governments have, more or less, chosen to prioritize the latter. But while that logic seems noble and mathematically sound on the surface, it ignores a devastating human cost. And, more importantly, it creates a wildly hypocritical double standard. While ordinary citizens are encouraged to undergo collective moral cleansing by sweating through 40-degree nights, the elites making these rules are doing no such thing. When a continent's workforce is subjected to sustained temperatures pushing past 35 degrees Celsius without the reprieve of mechanical cooling, the economy doesn't just slow down linearly. It begins to experience what economists call a non-linear transmission of heat stress. At a critical threshold roughly around 30 degrees Celsius indoors, human cognition and physical limits drop off a cliff. Workers lose crucial REM sleep, physical recovery is severely compromised, fine motor skills degrade, and overall labor output drops by a staggering 3% for every single degree the temperature rises. Furthermore, the argument that AC inherently destroys the climate is outdated. Running an air conditioner is only carbon intensive if the electricity grid powering it relies on fossil fuels. During the absolute peak of a summer heat wave, Europe experiences a massive corresponding surge in solar power generation. The very sun that is beating down and heating the cities is also beating down directly on millions of solar panels across the continent. Yet, due to sky-high electricity prices driven by decades of distorted, complex energy policies, European consumers face residential electricity rates that are significantly higher than those in the United States or Asia. This artificial inflation makes the daily operational costs of an AC unit feel like an exorbitant luxury expense rather than a basic necessary utility for life support. Change, however, is finally coming, whether the stubborn regulators and stoic traditionalists like it or not. The sheer suffocating force of physical reality is finally starting to break the ideological deadlock. Because traditional split system installations are blocked by relentless red tape and historic preservation rules, sales of innovative DIY-friendly portable split units have skyrocketed across France, Germany, and the UK, with sales figures doubling year on year. AC sales across France, Germany, and the UK have risen sharply since 2022, and governments that once treated cooling as optional are beginning to slowly update building codes, fund retrofits for care homes and hospitals, and loosen the heritage restrictions that made installation needlessly difficult in historic city centers. That shift is overdue, and it's the right one. The romanticized European summer of the 20th century is dead. It's time to build a climate-resilient European summer of the future. Western Europe is finally beginning to recognize that the only question is how many more summers it takes before recognition turns into action. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.